I'm so upset. Oh my God.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks, live from the Poly Market studio in LA. And also we have Brad M923 with us. Thank you for joining tyt.com/team. Happens right away, just like that. We get on there, boom, people start joining.
Right away.
Right away, and I love that. Okay, so guys, we have really important stories about the serious crimes that Donald Trump committed, including the fake elector scheme to steal the election. We're gonna lead with that in a minute, but we're gonna go to Trump's hush money trial case in a little bit. And I'm gonna try to straighten out what no one, I don't think, has been able to clearly explain on whether Trump actually does have a good case on appeal or not. That's a little bit later in the show, and we're gonna ask you to vote on it too. But now let's get started on the more important case.
Yes, so we begin today's show with some breaking news in regard to the state of Wisconsin and some criminal charges for the key players of the fake elector scheme. Today, Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul charged 3 main players in Donald Trump's 2020 fake elector scheme with felony forgery. Now, the fake electors out of that state have not been charged and will not be charged. That is part of the legal strategy that the Attorney General is moving forward with. But the individuals who are facing charges include Kenneth Chesebro, who is the attorney and advisor to the campaign. He is the individual who orchestrated and kind of was the architect of the fake elector scheme. He also referred to the fake elector scheme as the fake elector scheme in email messages that he sent out, which was a dumb thing to do. Mike Roman is another individual who's getting charged. He was the head of the election day operations for the Trump campaign. And finally, Jamie Trupis, who's Trump's attorney in Wisconsin. So they're being charged with helping the fake electors to submit the paperwork that stated that Trump was actually the real winner of the 2020 presidential election. And they weren't really subtle about their plan either. During or around the time of a December 14th, 2020 meeting, Chesebro sent a message to Trupis and Roman that said, Wisconsin meeting of the deal or of the real electors is a go, the complaint said. Trupis responded with a thumbs up emoji, the complaint said. The complaint also details how the fake elector slate was delivered to Chesebro from Wisconsin to Washington, D.C. on January 5th, 2021 by Alicia Gunther, a law student working part-time at the Republican Party of Wisconsin. Roman told her to deliver the paperwork only to Chesebro. 5 minutes until I make the drop, Gunther texted at one point, according to the complaint. And then she says, I feel like a drug dealer. Now, the 3 men are due in court in September. Each one of them faces 6 years in prison and $10,000 in fines. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers had an in-depth, sophisticated reaction to these charges, writing simply good. Now, Wisconsin's Attorney General stated that the investigation into the fake elector scheme is not done, and others may face charges, including maybe the fake electors themselves. But for now, it appears that he is in fact holding off on charging the fake electors who claim that they were tricked into signing the documents.
Yeah, so now it's a number of states, Georgia, Wisconsin, and others, Arizona, et cetera, that are going after the fake elector scheme. Thank God. Merrick Garland took forever. I read a law blog today about Merrick Garland, and yes, people that have done this for a long time are confirming what I've been saying all along. He was so timid, so afraid. All of this should have happened in 2021. Here we are all the way in 2024, and it's taking local prosecutors to do it. It should have been done at the federal level by Merrick Garland. I'm glad that the states are doing it now. I wish states started in 2021 as well, so we could have already been this could have been adjudicated and you could know what kind of a criminal Donald Trump is and how he tried to steal this election. These are his lawyers, people working for him. So guys, to give you a sense of how clear the guilt here is, number one, the 10 fake electors in Wisconsin have already admitted, yes, Biden won the election. So they knew that Biden had won the election, but they were trying to steal it for Donald Trump. And they knew, as Anna just read to you, that the real electors were voting at some point. And they knew that they were not the real electors, they were the fake electors. It is crystal clear. And then more quotes. One of the emails says, quote, "Nothing about our meeting with the president can be shared with anyone." Who says that about a perfectly good legal meeting? Don't share anything we just said with the president about this, because the implication is obvious. We could be in legal trouble if that wasn't clear enough.
Hold on, I got to push back on that a little bit. I mean, we get internal emails at TYT saying these are internal emails, do not forward them or share them with the public, right?
So that's a fair point, Anna, but think about the context, right?
No, I know about the context here.
So if they were having no, I mean it for Trump. If these guys were having conversations with Trump about how to invade Iran, about our nuclear secrets, of course they could say don't share with anyone else.
Yeah.
But they're having conversations with Trump about how to overturn the election.
I know, I'm saying that statement alone is not necessarily indicative of criminality.
Yeah, okay, but within this context, it heavily implies criminality.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's like the weakest thing to cite. I mean, they were fake electors and they signed documents indicating that they were the real electors when they weren't. Like, yes, there's a lot of evidence against these individuals. I'm not saying they're innocent, please understand that, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything if someone says, hey, keep that meeting between us. I say that approximately 28 times a day.
I got you, but in this context, I think it is interesting data point, okay? Here's another data point. They're talking about January 6th and the need to make sure Mike Pence doesn't certify the election of the real electors. And they say, quote, "Obviously the discussion of such tactical options is highly confidential." Now, again, you could interpret it generously and say, well, I mean, they're figuring out their legal options on how to overturn the election, and that's why it should be highly confidential. Or you could look at it as most rational people would and say, yeah, it should be highly confidential because we're trying to steal a freaking election here, and you don't want to admit it as much as we already have it admitted in emails, including the use of the phrase fake electors.
So the fake elector scheme, dates back to the 2020 presidential election. It is now 2024. Josh Kaul is not the new attorney general. He's been attorney general in the state of Wisconsin since 2019. So I don't understand, it is good that he is pursuing this. I want you guys to understand, it is good that he is pursuing this. I want to know why he didn't pursue it much earlier.
Well, that's the irony we've pointed out in all these cases. Guys, to be clear, we have a position that is pretty unique. As far as I know, no one else has this position that I think is actually relatively obvious. I think the timing of these cases is political.
Yes.
And so if they weren't political, you would have immediately started all of these investigations that are absolutely necessary in 2021. Instead, the Democrats waited and waited. And when I say Democrats, I don't mean the Matt Gaetz theory that it's all coordinated, etc. I mean individual Democratic DAs, prosecutors, the attorney general at the federal level. They all waited. They didn't want to prosecute Donald Trump. Now, here's the part that no one else says, because everybody's on their 0 or 100 side, right?
100%, yeah.
And so the reality is they didn't want to prosecute Trump because he's one of the elites. And so they thought, well, if we prosecute President Trump, well, maybe they might prosecute President Biden or Attorney General Eric Holder, who clearly broke the law under Obama, et cetera, et cetera. So protect the elites, protect the elites. So, but then they panicked because, Trump is
gonna
run, and the idiots thought he wasn't gonna run.
That's right.
And so then they bring the cases they should have brought.
And guys,
they should have brought the cases. They should have brought them earlier. Now you bring them now, and people legitimately go, why now?
Okay, so look, the reason why I think it's a huge problem that the timing is politically motivated is because look at what the backlash following the verdict in the hush money case has been. There has been a lot of backlash because it does appear to most people in the country, other than hyper partisans on the left, that it was a politically motivated trial, a politically motivated case, and that it was unfair to Trump, which is why he literally raised hundreds of millions of dollars following that verdict.
So Anna, you make a good point that it seems unfair to a lot of people, and we've talked about that. But let's be clear on the polling. 57% of the country thinks he definitely did it.
Yes, they agree that he did it.
Yeah, and only 43% question why it was brought out, the legitimacy, etc. So actually, the majority of the country does think he's guilty, and they're not questioning the charges that much. But if you watch, media, there is a massive right-wing tsunami that makes it seem like 99% of Americans don't think that this was legitimate. That's just not true. But there are legitimate issues about the timing that we keep bringing up. Because if you wait for 2.5 years and then you start prosecuting him just as he's running in the middle of the campaign, it looks terrible.
Yeah. Look, the polling also says while most Americans, 57% as you mentioned, do believe that Trump is guilty of what he was charged with or indicted with, they also think it's politically motivated. Like the prosecution was politically motivated.
And by the way, we're among those 2 Americans.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Look, I'm not bringing that up to say like, no, leave Trump alone. There shouldn't be any consequence. That's not what I'm saying, guys. I'm saying that the optics matter, and you don't want to turn your opponent into a martyr by making it pretty clear that the timing is politically motivated.
So look, that's why I say we're pretty much unique here as far as I know. Because one side says, no, Trump should be above the law. I don't care what laws he broke. Everything is minor, so what? You're stealing national secrets, doing a coup attempt, who cares? It's all minor, it's all politics, right? He should be above the law. And the other side says, I don't see anything wrong with other politicians. I don't see anything wrong with the timing. Oh yeah, of course you prosecute him right in the middle of a campaign. Just waste 2.5 years for no reason. Was it not a crime for those 2.5 years? But if you turn on mainstream media right now, 0% of the hosts are talking about the timing. 0%, right? And so they're also pretending, other than the outrageous cases like Bob Menendez where money and gold is falling out of his suits, right? They all say, no, Trump's the only one doing this. Establishment politicians are so pure. And that's why MAGA and a lot of independents go, I don't believe mainstream media. They're full of crap. I see politicians doing terrible things all the time. And these liars tell me that they're all pure, but Trump's the only bad guy? And no, they're all terrible. You guys aren't wrong about that. Not all, but I could show different crimes very specifically for different individuals that are not prosecuted.
That's exactly right. I mean, just look at Congress alone, look at their stock portfolios, and just look at how year after year they beat the S&P 500 with their stock portfolios, as if they must be the most intelligent investors, right? Or maybe they're trading individual stocks based on insider information, like which is incredibly gross and something that you and I would be prosecuted for and be sent to prison for in a heartbeat. But the other thing I wanted to mention is, Cenk, other than the optics and how it could potentially lead to Americans seeing Trump as a martyr, there's also the reality of the federal cases and how those were prosecuted too late in the game and might end up just being dismissed once Trump is elected. You know what I'm saying?
No,
so like,
it's a debacle.
if you care about consequences for the fake elector scheme, for the mishandling of classified documents, well then you should be incredibly frustrated with the Democrats who sat on their hands for 2 years thinking, well, we don't have to prosecute because it's not like he's gonna run again, right?
Yeah, look, maybe a quick and easy way to summarize this is most of media, whether it's mainstream media or right-wing media, either say Merrick Garland, the Democrats, etc., are totally innocent and Donald Trump is totally guilty. Or they'll say it in reverse. Merrick Garland and Democrats are totally guilty and Donald Trump is totally innocent of all these charges. No, they're both guilty. The Democrats and Merrick Garland are guilty of waiting 2.5 years because they didn't want to prosecute any of their own beloved elites and then decided to prosecute because Donald Trump was running against them, okay? So for people on the left, that is apparently a very controversial position, then I want anyone, people on the left or anyone in mainstream media to tell me, why did you wait 2.5 years? No one has ever been asked that question on cable news. No one has ever answered that question on cable news. So they are guilty for delaying this and making it political. And Trump is also guilty. If you don't think that Trump broke these laws, what the hell are fake electors for? When they know where the real electors are, they know when the real electors are voting. They had a scheme to actually end our democracy, but no one will believe that because the Democrats cry wolf all the time.
Guys, they implemented fake electors in New Mexico. Like this is like the point that no one ever brings up. I bring it up all the time because I just think it's so indicative of what the intentions were here. The Trump campaign had no litigation in regard to the results of the 2020 presidential election in New Mexico, okay? They implemented fake electors in New Mexico anyway.
So the reason why that's so important, guys, is because they knew for a fact that they had lost New Mexico.
Exactly.
They're not even bothering to bring any of the nonsense lawsuits they brought in the other states.
Exactly.
They know with 100% certainty they lost in New Mexico. They're like, who cares? Let's get some fake electors in New Mexico, because they never thought it was a legitimate challenge. The recounts were legitimate, the hand recounts were legitimate. Asking to verify the election is super legitimate. But they were done, sometimes in some states 3 times over. They definitely lost, and they knew it for a fact. And they're like, who cares? Let's just cheat. Let's get in fake electors. Let's make sure January 6th is delayed either by Mike Pence or a riot, so that we can kick it back to the states, put in the fake electors. That's a legitimate coup attempt. And again, I'm super mad at Trump and all of these guys who got charged, and I hope they all go to jail for it. But I'm also super mad at Merrick Garland.
Yeah, me too.
Well, you got a coup attempt and you're not gonna prosecute that for 2.5 years because you love the elites so much that you think even your opponents, no. We should never prosecute anyone who's wealthy and powerful. You disgust me. There's no defense for Merrick Garland.
All right, well, we got a massive block in regard to Biden's executive order on immigration. So why don't we take a break, and when we come back, we're gonna have one of those rare segments where a Republican senator agrees with Joe Biden. Come right back.
They knew and they let it happen.
All right, so many great comments right out of the gate from our members at TYT.com. Apes Together Strong wrote in with 2 code points. He said, with the creation of ASPAC yesterday, I can comfortably predict that the thugs at Shop TYT are already working on new merch.
This was my ass.
You spank that ass.
I don't know that we're gonna make ASPAC t-shirts, because are people gonna really wear that? And people are gonna be like,
maybe we need to go back to being irreverent, Cenk.
Okay.
Maybe we're not irreverent enough these days.
The only pack I'm in favor of is ASPAC. Well, that's problematic. That's problematic. Anyway, he wrote in again, or they wrote in again, in reference to he actually, because of this comment, in reference to yesterday's bonus episode. Cenk, I love you, brother, and I'm a man who doesn't and has never cheated. It didn't matter whether I was 12, 20, or now in my 30s. I can't speak for other men, and my dad raised me right. Real men are loyal to their partners. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, hit the join button and become TYT Strong.
Yeah, yesterday's bonus episode for the members, total banger.
Yeah.
Literally and theoretically.
Yeah, well, okay, she's here all week. So guys, check that out. And while you're becoming a member, make sure you check out today's bonus episode, Operation Joy today. Tuesday's always Joy Day. and then old school, where we're going to talk a little bit also about Joy too. Okay, Eclectic Miscellanea wrote in, "Hi all, I'm ready for the fairest show in America. In fact, I'll make a prediction. Unlike mainstream media, TYT will criticize both Democrats and Republicans on border policy because both sides absolutely deserve it." Well, hold Eclectic, that's coming. So a pretty good prediction. Kobe says, "I'm driving down to DC next Thursday to protest the war criminal Netanyahu on June 13th. I love it.
Nice.
I hope more people join you. That's awesome."
By the way, a story that I'll cover more in depth tomorrow because we don't have enough time in the show today and it just broke. The House just passed a bill to sanction the International Criminal Court.
The House is a bunch.
So embarrassing.
I don't care about, like, you can't hide behind tropes all day as you do these things. Come on, AIPAC controls the House 100%. It's so obvious. We've got more detail on that later.
You can't get the House to pass most important legislation that Americans need to benefit their lives.
No way.
Like, it's amazing.
Paid family leave, they're like, no way, screw you, right? Average Israel, yes, Israel. No one's allowed to criticize you. We bow to you, Israel. Shut up. All these politicians are the worst people in the world. Patience says, "Oh my God, Anna, that shirt is great. My favorite color, red and animals. Chef's kiss."
Thank you.
Bark Nova says, "Makes sense for Wisconsin to go after Cheese Bro." I love that. Teddy Cool writes in, "Great to hear the name Cheesebro back in the news. Always makes me smile hearing that name." You know what?
Blue Apron gift card, right?
Yeah, Bark Nova, Blue Apron gift card, rewards at tyt.com.
Deserved.
Nice job. Well, people are now starting to ask for Aspect shirts.
Oh my God.
The Chaotic Neutral Dragon says, "Aspect, that was my ass. Dude, I'd wear that shirt, Jake, LOL.
This was my ass."
And
Call a
ouch,
crackhead.
ouch my nards writes, "Wait, Aspect? I'd wear that for Pride." Okay.
Oh my God.
You spank that ass.
Okay, I don't know. All right, I'm going to talk to the thugs at shoptyt.com, see if we can make that happen. Okay, and finally, Jack C. Sonbag and Jeffrey Tucker, you guys are American heroes for joining. Dawn Whitehead, thank you for gifting a membership, and Lady Fukanti, 5 memberships. You're awesome. Anna.
Well, big news on Biden and what he plans to do in regard to immigration. So let's get right to it.
We came to a clear bipartisan deal. It was the strongest border security agreement in decades. But then Republicans in Congress, not all, but walked away from it. Why? Because Donald Trump told them to. He told the Republicans, it has been published widely by many of you, that he didn't want to fix the issue, he wanted to use it to attack me. So today, I'm moving past Republican obstruction and using the executive authorities available to me as president to do what I can on my own to address the border. Frankly, I would have preferred to address this issue through bipartisan legislation.
A rare sight with President Joe Biden vocally calling out Republicans for essentially listening to Donald Trump and killing the bipartisan Senate bill that did seek to reform immigration, although do so in a way that was far more favorable to what conservatives have been demanding for decades. Now, today, President Joe Biden has decided, all right, well, since you guys decided to destroy that bill, I'm gonna go ahead and sign an executive order on immigration, which would give him the power to shut the border down should there be a massive influx of asylum seekers attempting to cross the border through non-legal ports of entry. So that's an important element to the story to keep in mind, and we're gonna revisit that in just a moment. But it's also important to keep in mind that this executive order will run into legal challenges. In fact, the ACLU is already giving comments to the press discussing the lack of constitutionality with this executive order. And back in 2018, Donald Trump attempted to implement an extremely similar asylum ban, and that was struck down in the federal courts. Now, current law also allows people to ask for humanitarian protection no matter how they enter the country. And so legal experts say that Biden's order likely will be struck down because of that. Now, the legal justification, though, for the Biden ban on asylum seekers, people briefed on the order said, stems from a section of the Immigration and Nationality Act known as Section 212F. That provision says the president can suspend the entry of foreigners if he finds that the entry of aliens or any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental. And I should let you know that it's also the exact same section of immigration law that Trump used to justify his asylum ban. And obviously it didn't work because it got struck down in the courts. So my point is, Biden's executive order today will be challenged in the courts and very likely will be struck down in the courts because this has already happened, and it's happened in 2018 under Donald Trump. So I have more details, including the number of asylum seekers that would have to try to enter the country to allow for Biden to basically shut the border down. So let's go to graphic 3 here. In May, the Border Patrol, graphic 2. The Senate bill would have allowed the president to shut down the border to asylum seekers if a daily threshold was surpassed. The order is designed to mimic that provision at 2,500 illegal crossings a day, and that's according to people who were briefed on the order. And that threshold will easily be met. Just to give you an idea, in May, the Border Patrol arrested about 3,500 migrants crossing the border a day, down from a recent high of about 10,000 a day in December, according to people familiar with the matter. So I don't think that this is a real solution. I don't think this is even a Band-Aid on a very obvious problem with this broken immigration system. But this is, in my opinion, done for political reasons, and I'll get to why I believe that in just a moment. But I'm curious what you think, Cenk.
Yeah, this is dumb, and everything about this is dumb. So let me explain all the different ways that this is ridiculous. So number one, this is obviously just political theater because, as Anna already explained, Trump already tried this same exact thing, and the courts voted it down. So Biden's team knows for a fact the courts are going to strike it down. So they're doing something illegal, the same thing that Trump did, just so that he looks tough on the border. So that's a dumb way to approach this issue. Second is, the flow is much lower now of undocumented immigrants than it was a couple of months ago. Much, much, much lower, okay? So did Biden do anything tough in the meanwhile? No, he literally hasn't done anything because the Republicans blocked it. So what happened? I thought it was like our actions that dictated. If Biden comes into office, they pour in. If Trump comes into office, no one comes. These kind of dumb conversations.
Ebbs and flows.
The ebbs and flows of undocumented immigrants is based on the home countries. When Venezuela explodes, we get lots of Venezuelan immigrants. When there's a terrible cartel violence in Mexico, we get more immigrants from Mexico. But no one ever addresses the actual issue. Instead, we all argue like dumbasses about things that don't matter and don't affect it at all. So this is a just giant waste of time.
So can I jump in real quick? There's one point of clarification that I think is important because Biden, when he first got elected into office, after he got inaugurated, he did reverse some Trump era immigration policies. One of them was the Remain in Mexico plan, which had asylum seekers literally remain in Mexico until their asylum claims were heard. So Biden gets elected and he keeps his promise to voters. I mean, voters wanted to reverse this and he reversed it. Soon after that, there was a pretty big influx of migrants trying to cross the border. And Biden was asked at that time whether he regretted reversing Trump's orders. And he's like, no, I should have done it faster. And then fast forward to a few years later, he's hitting up Mexico trying to forge that deal again so they can do Remain in Mexico again. And at that point, Lopez Obrador, the president of Mexico, is like, nah, man, no.
Yeah.
Wasn't willing to play ball like he was willing to do with Trump for some reason.
Yeah, so look, let me be clear on a couple of things. It's never 0 and 100, right? It's always some sort of gradation in the middle. So the overwhelming majority of the issue is from the home countries. Can we do things differently here that could make a difference, like having a lot more judges process these cases quicker? Yes. Having more border patrol to stop more people coming in? Yes. So there are things we can do to make a difference, but they are overshadowed by what's going on in the home countries, which is a much larger factor, but a factor that we never ever discuss in America. I'm the only person, well, I guess, who also ran for president, but in media, et cetera, that talks about doing a Marshall Plan for these countries so they don't have a reason to come here. But I know, helping other countries that aren't killing innocent civilians with bombs, well, that doesn't help the defense contractor, so that doesn't get done, right? So let me go to the third thing that's dumb in this, which is people constantly saying there's an open border. There is not an open border. And when Biden does this, he makes it appear like there's an open border. Look at every story that we read, you guys, and the quotes that we show. 3,500 people arrested at the border. 10,000 people in earlier months when the flow was gigantic. 10,000 people arrested at the border. And that's how we know how many people are coming in. Well, if it's an open border, why are we arresting them? No, we arrest them. That's not the real issue. The issue is, do you release them into the country or don't you? And that is so explosive and so hard to adjudicate, because both Democrats and Republicans, the voters, are kind of conflicted on that issue. They're not sure what they want on that issue, so we never address it. So the two largest factors, should we release or not release, and what's happening in the home countries, are not at all addressed. Instead, we play silly little games.
So, and look, this is an incredibly difficult and complicated matter. Anyone who claims that it's easy is lying to you, because, Cenk, you make a really good point, right? What can we do to improve conditions on the ground in the home countries so people don't feel the need to try to come immigrate here, right? And by the way, let me just also note, obviously, a healthy immigration system is a good thing. Okay, immigrants tend to be incredibly motivated people. Like, you want those kinds of people to come to this country, but obviously resources are finite, and you can't just have open borders and allow anyone to come in. You have to have a better system to process these people, see if their asylum claims are legitimate asylum claims. The other issue is, if you're coming into the United States seeking asylum for economic reasons, well, asylum doesn't cover economic reasons. And a lot of the migrants coming in are coming here for economic purposes, but they're taking advantage of an asylum loophole where, the smugglers essentially tell them, just say that you're leaving your home country because you're afraid for your life.
Look, there's a solution here that Democrats will be uncomfortable with, and maybe some Republicans as well, which is that we don't release them. But if you're arrested at the border and you're asking for asylum, we're not going to deport you. We're going to give you a real asylum hearing, but you got to wait for the asylum hearing in detention.
And that takes 6 years. Because there's not enough personnel or judges to process the asylum claims, which is why the bipartisan Senate bill, even though it was awful in some ways, the money that was going to be allocated for additional personnel and judges was so important. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this executive order doesn't allocate resources. He can't do that unilaterally. He would need Congress to allocate the resources.
So look, here, one more thing about the Marshall Plan. So who's our top trading partner? Obviously our best ally, Israel, right? That's why we funneled them so much. Oh no, it's not Israel? Well, then it must be the UK or China. China's gigantic. No, it's Mexico. Mexico's our top trading partner by a lot, okay? So we have given $300 billion to Israel because they're such an important ally, we hear, over the years. If we had given $300 billion to Mexico, there'd probably be no illegal immigration at all, because Mexico would be a flourishing, amazing economy and democracy. And people even if they're coming from Latin America or South America, they'd stop at Mexico. They wouldn't bother coming to America. Instead, we've done almost nothing to help our neighbors. We funneled all sorts of money to Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, et cetera. And now we have this giant undocumented immigrant problem, and we wonder why it happened. But our politicians, they don't want to solve the problem. All they want to do is play theater. So this is nothing but theater on a case that is definitely going to be a policy that is definitely going to be struck down. And they know it. That was the whole internal debate in the White House.
Yeah, and final thing I'll say is that the idea that Biden is going to win political brownie points by being tougher on immigration through this executive order, it's just a ridiculous idea. Like, look, there were a group of Democratic lawmakers who apparently penned a letter to Biden begging him to do this executive order for their own political purposes, because they don't want Democrats to appear weak on immigration. But you're not gonna outright wing the right wing on immigration. proposals. You get what I'm saying? So
yeah, that's so right, Anna. If you're talking about, now if we're talking about politics rather than policy, Joe Biden looks pathetic. So I'm sorry if I break your heart if you're a Democrat, but I gotta be honest with you guys. So when he's flip-flopping on Remain in Mexico, I'm against it, I'm in favor of it. Now all of a sudden he's doing the Trump policies, and he went to the border on the same day that Trump did and begged Trump to do his policies, but Trump wouldn't let him. What do you think that looks like?
Looks bad.
It looks like weakness. So the one giant advantage that Trump has, he's an idiot, he's terrible on policy, blah, blah, blah. But he comes out and goes, this is what's gonna happen. This is this and this is that. And it projects confidence and strength. And you might hate that works with voters. You might be like, I wish we lived in a more cerebral world where they cared more about his policies and analyzed them. But we don't live in that world. We live in a world where people look for strong leaders. So Trump does that, and Biden goes, Trump, can I please do Trump's policies? I changed my mind. Brother, you gotta come up with your own policies and then fight for them so you look strong. But Democrats never do that. They think that that's like an affront to civility to actually fight for policy proposals that their voters love.
So there is a juicy angle to this story, so I wanna reset for that because right before we were gonna go on air today, something interesting happened and it involved a Republican senator. So, believe it or not, one of Joe Biden's biggest political opponents in the Senate actually agrees with him on immigration. Now, in order to understand the statement from the Republican senator, let's just quickly take a look at what Biden said today in announcing his immigration executive order.
We came to a clear bipartisan deal. It was the strongest border security agreement in decades. But then Republicans in Congress, not all, but walked away from it. Why? Because Donald Trump told them to. He told the Republicans, it has been published widely by many of you, that he didn't want to fix the issue, he wanted to use it to attack me. So today, I'm moving past Republican obstruction and using the executive authorities available to me as president to do what I can on my own to address the border. Frankly, I would have preferred to address this issue through bipartisan legislation.
There you have President Joe Biden calling out Republicans who caved to Donald Trump's demands to destroy, demolish a bipartisan immigration bill in the Senate that had all sorts of goodies that Republicans have been asking for decades on immigration policy. Now, believe it or not, even though you have Biden calling out his political opponents as aggressively as Biden can, turns out there's one Republican senator who actually agrees with him. Let's take a look at who it is.
Everybody who comes on this floor and says our border's broken, we should do something about it, you're absolutely right. And unfortunately, we didn't get there. President Trump opposed a Senate bill. We couldn't find a better way forward that would get 60 votes. I hate that.
In a political climate where it appears that both sides have trouble agreeing to the facts of any political issue, it is nice to see a Republican senator acknowledging reality.
Yeah, which of course he'll flip-flop on later because he's Lindsey Graham and he's one of the most servile creatures that's ever entered the halls of Congress. So the minute he needs Trump to start a war and Trump is president, he'll go back groveling and start licking his boots, a place where he belongs. So, but for now, Biden is in charge and probably Lindsey Graham is pushing for him to keep the war on Gaza going. So he's like, Biden might not be so wrong. I mean, look, as long as he's spending $20 billion for more disastrous wars in the Middle East, maybe I'll lick his boots for 1 or 2 licks. Oh, wow, congratulations, Lindsey Graham. But anyway, he is correct on this, whether it is intentional or for political reasons. There's no question he's right.
And look, a lot of the Trump supporters, at least this is what I was noticing on social media, were justifying what Trump did in getting Republicans to kill that bill because they were arguing, well, we don't even need that bill. Through executive action, Biden can just do his own immigration policy without the help of Congress. Except the executive order that Biden signed today is gonna be challenged in the courts. It will be struck down just like Donald Trump's immigration executive order having to do with asylum seekers dating back to 2018 was struck down. The Biden administration has cited the same legal justification that Trump had cited in 2018. And that got struck down. So what Biden did today will be struck down. And even if it doesn't, even if magically the courts change their minds and they side with Biden on this, the executive order doesn't allocate the necessary resources in order to process asylum seekers quickly and decide whether or not they have a just asylum claim or whether they should be deported back to their home country. And so the problem will continue to fester. And if you think an executive order is gonna solve it, you would be mistaken.
All right, last thing on that for me. So Biden puts out this executive order that he knows is gonna be struck down, so he's full of crap. Trump, on the other hand, had all the Republicans vote against their own immigration bill. So he's full of crap. So if you're despondent about our choices, you're not wrong. And by the way, if you say, hey, yeah, Cenk, but they're all politicians, they're all greasy liars of different degrees, and this is the kind of stuff we've been having to deal with all of our life, you're also not wrong. So there's very few magical politicians who actually mean what they say and actually deliver on their promises. Trump and Biden often take it to comical lengths, but the core of what Lindsey Graham said that was right today is Trump did order the Republicans to turn around on a bill they wrote, supported, and were definitely going to vote for, and are now pretending was a bad bill, and then saying, oh, I can't believe Biden didn't fix the immigration problem, when they actively chose not to fix it because Donald Trump ordered them to for political reasons so that he himself can gain, but make sure that the American people were hurt.
When we come back from the break, we're gonna talk about the likelihood of Donald Trump winning appeal in his hush money payments conviction. That story is fascinating, lots of legalese, but luckily we have a Columbia Law School graduate here to kind of break it down with us and help us understand what's going on here. Not really, a big deal.
No, it's just not a big deal, not at all. But nevertheless, I'm gonna explain it clearly to you guys, which no one else is doing. That's the important part.
All right, so let's take a break, we'll be right back.
There's one idea that we mentioned so far on the show that has taken off like a rocket. So let me go to the members on TYT.com first. Commie Poison Blood Vermin says, idea for a TYT store, pick up the orange on red hat with the words ass pack, funded ass hat or similar. I freely donate this granddad joke / play on words to any organization or individual that makes, sells, buys, or wears such a hat. Okay, so I like the legalese there. That isn't really legal. Anyway, Cenk's left tricep of fury.
That's been the word of the day, legalese, by the way.
I know,
I've never used that word more than I have today.
And ass hat, ass pack, I mean. Ass hat is also another word that he mentioned. Anyways, Cenk's left tricep of fury says, damn Biden, you almost made me nod off listening to you. How the hell do you think you have 4 more years in you, Jesus? And that was like 20 seconds and we were all like, meanwhile, Trump's like, oh, I'm the best. I'm the guy who created all the jobs. I'm for America. It's not a fair contest, man. Politics is about media. One side is crushing it and the other side's mumbling in a way we can't understand. Anyways, Pee Wee Shuttlepan says, what about red hats with ass pack in big white letters? So we've got something going on here. ShopTYT.com, we'll talk to the thugs. Commie Poison Blood Vermin also wrote in, all packs are ass packs. So it's a perfect political sentiment to put on a t-shirt. That's pretty good. Rainbow Bright says, Cenk is a member of the gay community. We definitely would wear that shirt. Talk about the money coming in.
Thank you for writing in, because I was worried that like someone made a joke about Pride, and I was like, I don't know if we were gonna like that.
No, that person was also LGBTQ. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I'm only reading the folks who are in that community who are saying.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. Eric, the Youper Dragon says, I love the more natural look, Anna. You're beautiful and don't need to cover any of it up. Cenk, you're handsome too. Okay, guys, you don't have to write the Cenk part. Okay. I'm just playing around about like being offended or something. No, you can just keep it to your actual comments.
Thank you. That's very sweet. I'm so tired of doing my makeup every day, so I'm trying something.
No, God bless. Joint TYT member says, I don't disagree with you all about the Trump case. Just to keep it real, MAGA would be crying foul like little bitches, regardless of the optics or when the investigation started.
True.
That is definitely true. And a bunch of people wrote in about that. You guys are right. Now, having said that, it matters whether you're right or wrong, right? And so you've got to do the right things. I know they'll complain either way, but remember, we're trying to win over independents, and you don't want independents going to them because they got confused because our side did something wrong.
I just want to be fair. Like, I want to be fair,
yes,
and I want
that's the most
to
important
accurately inform, and if I make a mistake, I want to correct it. That is my goal. That is what I'm doing.
Okay, and on Twitch, Omega Shenron Dragon wrote in, if Democrats have donkeys as a mascot, and most of them defend genocidal leaders, aren't they the real ass pack? Okay, you can take it in a lot of different ways. Dave Schmidt 311, thank you for the 2 subs. A Gentle Savage Dragon writes in, thanks for spreading the truth in this mad media world. We appreciate you guys. And Jesse just says, hello to the beautiful people. It's been a beautiful day for me, and I hope the same is true for each of you. I love it. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, but also Minette Darden, Deborah Gwynn, Kate Mick, and Kathleen Barber. They all just joined by hitting the join button below and became American heroes. And speaking of which, John Krills, thank you for gifting 5 memberships on YouTube. You guys are the best. Anna.
Well, let's revisit the criminal convictions that Donald Trump is seeking to appeal.
This was a verdict that we were expecting. We're going to appeal, and we're going to win on appeal. I mean, that's the goal.
The president's going to cooperate with the pre-sentence investigation, and we're going to speedily appeal this unjust verdict. I think this case is replete with reversible error. We plan to vigorously defend President Trump's rights in the appellate courts all the way up to the US Supreme Court if necessary.
It's abundantly clear that Donald Trump's legal team intends to appeal the criminal convictions that Trump is now dealing with as a result of the hush money trial. He was convicted on 34 counts of falsifying business documents, but there were some elements to how the trial was conducted that the legal team plans to focus on during appeal. And according to reporting by Politico, there is a pretty good possibility they might win on appeal. So before we discuss what the fallout would be if the verdicts were in fact reversed, let's talk about what the arguments are here. So Trump's first chance to challenge the verdict will come within 30 days of his sentencing on July 11th. At that point, he can appeal with New York's first judicial department. Now that court has such broad discretion to review jury findings that it's sometimes called the 13th juror. Okay, now the way the appellate division, according to Politico, is structured could also cut in Trump's favor. The division is dubbed the 13th juror in New York because judges are allowed to make decisions based on the facts of the case, not only the law. And just to further elaborate on that, you have former Manhattan District Attorney Diana Florence, who told Politico to give Trump an advantage. It's a loophole, if you will, that exists very uniquely in this appellate division of New York, given there's an inherent kind of bias with white-collar defendants who are treated less severely. To that extent, it could cut in his favor.
Okay, in a little bit, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna explain to you guys, does Donald Trump have a good case on appeal? So it's a really interesting case, and we're gonna do a poll on it. In fact, we're putting it up in the chat right now if you're watching live. Very curious what you think, but hear me out on what the issues on appeal are first. That's coming up in a little bit.
So let's get to the specific arguments that the Trump legal team could make upon appeal. So there's the legal theory that allowed for prosecutors to transform 34 typically misdemeanor counts of falsifying business documents into a felony. So that is an argument that has been made. I actually think that's a pretty decent argument, right? The argument is that they trumpeted up, no pun intended, misdemeanor charges into felonies in order to, convict Donald Trump of felonies. And then there's also an issue with the instructions given to jurors. Basically, to prove the underlying crime, jurors had to agree that Trump used unlawful means, but did not have to agree on a single unlawful act. So let me break it down even further because this sounds a little confusing. But basically, Trump was charged with falsifying business documents in order to cover up a crime. Now, the jurors did not have to unanimously agree on what that crime was, right? So the crime can be breaking campaign finance laws, right? But not every juror had to agree that that was the crime that Donald Trump was trying to cover up by falsifying business documents.
I'm gonna explain why.
Yeah, actually, why don't we pause there? Because I am super curious to hear your feedback on this because I actually think those are decent arguments, but maybe I'm wrong.
So let me explain. So first of all, the poll, in case you haven't seen it in the live chat, does Trump have a legitimate case for appealing his conviction? No, but I broke it, the yeses down to two things. Yes, but he should lose the appeal, and yes, and he should win the appeal, okay? So now let me explain how it's gonna break down. So step one, in order to convict Donald Trump, you have to go through 3 steps in this case. Convict him of a felony. Step one is, did he falsify business records? This is the easiest one. It's gotta be unanimous. If you heard that it doesn't have to be unanimous, that's not true. That's only true for step 3. It must be unanimous, and it is a misdemeanor by itself. Almost no one disputes this. Even people debating on Trump's side go, well, it's just a misdemeanor, but he definitely falsified business records, and that's what the conviction was about. Now, step 2 is, was there a conspiracy or an attempt to affect an election by unlawful means? That must also be unanimous, okay? If yes to step 1 and step 2, then felony. But there's a lack of clarity here because what does unlawful means mean? So there's a lot of things that could be unlawful. Did they try to affect the election in an unlawful way? Well, that's why you have to go to the underlying crime to see if he did violate that law. That's why there's a step 3. So when you get to step 3, what were the unlawful means? There were 3 options that the prosecution and the judge gave them. Violations of federal election law. That is a slight problem because that has already hit the statute of limitations, but it's not clear that it matters if it hit the statute of limitations as long as you're using it as an underlying crime. Violation of tax law. That also almost certainly happened, but was it connected enough to this particular falsifying of business records and the falsification of other business records as it relates to these records?
So I need you to pause for a second. You're right about the statute of limitations running out. That is a problem, and it is unclear whether or not that's gonna be an argument that could help Trump reverse the convictions. But in regard to the crimes that were committed, remember, Michael Cohen is front and center in this case because Michael Cohen was the one who paid the hush money payments or payment, $130,000 to Stormy Daniels. He has served time in prison for it, and I went back to see what he was found guilty of. And so I'm gonna read from the DOJ. This was the press release dating back to 2018 on what Michael Cohen pled guilty to. Cohen, 51 of New York, pleaded guilty to 5 counts of willful tax evasion, 1 count of making false statements to a bank, 1 count of causing an unlawful campaign contribution, that was the hush money payment, and 1 count of making an excessive campaign contribution.
That's also the hush money payment.
Right, so remember, Donald Trump falsified business documents in order to reimburse Michael Cohen, who took out an equity line of credit on his home in order to pay the hush money payment to Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, now there's an extra layer of complexity here, but it's okay, I'm gonna break it down simply. Michael Cohen's charged by the Southern District of New York, which is a federal case, because they broke a federal law on campaign finance violations. And that's super clear, he admitted it, he went to prison for it, and Donald Trump did it with him, he was his co-conspirator. But Donald Trump is not charged in a federal case because that statute of limitations has run out. And in fact, the reason it ran out is because Merrick Garland is a weakling and he would not pursue this case.
Bingo, yes.
He should have pursued it in 2021. I went and read law blogs about it, and they agree. He was timid, and the prosecutors in the Southern District, which are federal prosecutors, read the tea leaves and thought, it doesn't look like the Attorney General wants us to pursue this case against Trump. So it's actually Biden's Attorney General that ironically protected Trump against this case at the federal level.
Yeah, guys, look.
Okay, I'm gonna come back to the New York case in a second.
This was a federal case.
It was.
This was a federal case.
And they should have pursued it federally as they did with Michael Cohen. So a lot of complexity there, but overall, so since they didn't pursue it, then New York pursues it. And Alvin Bragg is the Manhattan District Attorney. So that is related to state, not federal. He pursues the case, but he could still have a federal crime as the underlying crime in order to have unlawful means that support the falsifying of business records, okay? Again, everyone agrees he falsified the business records, but is there an underlying crime that turns the misdemeanor into a felony? So now, the really interesting part is Judge Merchant says, you could take any of the 3 potential crimes as the underlying crime, and you don't have to be unanimous on that. And that's when people flip out and go, oh, well, what do you mean? In a jury case, you always have to be unanimous. No, the theory is this, and it'll be tested in the appeals. No, you've got, let me give you an easier case so you could wrap your head around it, because that's what I needed, right? So let's say the underlying crime was a bank robbery. And in that bank robbery, Donald Trump assaulted someone, killed someone, and also lied on his taxes about where he got the money from the bank robbery. So that's 3 different potential crimes. What the judge is saying, and apparently what New York law is saying is, we don't really care if you thought he did the assault, but he didn't do the murder, or he did the tax evasion, but didn't do the assault or the murder, because all you need is one underlying crime. So as long as you think there was one underlying crime, you don't have to be unanimous about which underlying crime he did in that particular case. So that's why that then turns the misdemeanor into a felony. Now, they're gonna say, and that leads to the 2 major issues, in my opinion. A lot of other issues in the appeal, but to me, these are the 2 I'm unsure about. So number 1 is, does the jury have to be unanimous in the underlying crime? It's possible that the progressives, the liberals on the court, will side with Donald Trump. Because if you say they don't have to be unanimous on the underlying crime, more people will be convicted.
That's exactly right, yeah.
Right? And usually the liberal justices are for laxer law enforcement. It's a very gross generalization, but generally speaking. But then ironically, Alito and Thomas, who are brutal against criminal defendants, are gonna have to turn around and go, this is the one criminal defendant that we think has special rights. So it's a super interesting case if it goes all the way to the Supreme Court. And lastly, is it relevant that the statute of limitations has run out on federal election law violations if that is the underlying crime that some of the jurors thought he was violating? So those are good issues. So I don't know which way the courts are gonna decide, because I'm not as well versed in the New York case law as you need to be to adjudicate those very difficult, complicated legal questions. Those are not questions of fact, those are questions of law. Can you apply the law or not? I'll color this jury, I'll bias this jury by saying I think I'm at yes, but he should lose the appeal. But I have a lot of questions, and I'd love to be part of that system that adjudicates it. I'd be fair about it, and I'm not ruling definitively at all. I'm gonna have to see what the judges say on appeal.
Yeah, look, you know how they say watching a debate is never gonna change your mind on what you already believe? That got tested for me yesterday, because for the first time, I heard someone make an argument on Piers Morgan's show, of all places, that changed my mind a little bit. And it was Mark Garagos, who is not a Trump supporter, lifelong Democrat, and he broke down the issues with this trial, and I was like, he's got a point. So I do think that there's some novel legal theory here that if Trump fails in reversing the convictions, if he fails or loses on appeal, I am worried about what the ramifications will be for other defendants moving forward. It sounds like some of these legal standards for conviction have been loosened specifically for Donald Trump. That's what I'm concerned about. And if we set a precedent with Donald Trump, who's to say that it won't be implemented for other people who are far less powerful?
Yeah, so last couple of things here. I'm gonna give you the poll result in a sec, but so I watched that Piers Morgan thing. Garagos was interesting, and maybe we should invite him on and have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
But understand that he also has a bias. His bias is not against Donald Trump at all, but he's a criminal defense attorney. So he does not want like the people that he defends being prosecuted with an underlying charge that is, could be one of 3 crimes, right?
Okay, that is a good point. There is a bit of a conflict of interest there, but for all of the restorative justice folks out there, consider how this loosens standards for criminal convictions. Okay, like that is a problem in my opinion.
Yeah, so you've got to be principled no matter what.
Right.
So look, if you're, and by the way, that debate was enormously unfair. It was 4 against 1. It was 4
Francesca
people.
was the only person.
Yeah, Francesca's the only one who was against Trump, and 4 other people kept saying, "Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, he's." And Piers Morgan drives me nuts on this issue. He makes it sound like, "Oh my God, Donald Trump is so innocent on everything. They're just trying to frame him."
No, Piers Morgan doesn't know the difference between a legal settlement that isn't hidden from the public in a nefarious way and a hush money payment. Look, you can find what Bill Clinton did in sleeping with an intern and then whatever the settlements he paid and other court cases to be immoral, and I certainly do. But that is different from a secret nefarious hush money payment right before the election.
Yeah, he's got to stop making the Clinton thing.
It's bad, it's a bad point.
Yeah, it just makes no sense. It's not about covering up the sexual affair. You know us, we don't care about the sex. We don't care about covering, we just care if you broke a law or not. Anyways, so look guys, the poll will be up on YouTube community for the Young Turks channel as well. But in the live chat, it's decisive. 83% say no, he does not have a legitimate case in appealing his conviction. 17% say yes, but he should lose. So far, 0% say yes and he should win the appeal.
Hold on, so the people who say yes and he should lose, or yes and he should win the appeal, how many, 0%?
0%.
And then there are people who say yes, he has a good argument for appeal, but he should lose anyway?
Legitimate, and that's why I phrased it that way. Is it a legitimate case for appeal? I think it is a legitimate case for appeal.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Because, and the reason to frame it.
I'm curious to see if it does make it to the Supreme Court, what they decide. I'm not a legal expert. I just think like this does open a door to unfairness in other criminal prosecutions, which I am concerned about.
Yeah, and guys, the reason I make that distinction is because the Trump team often has total trash arguments, conspiracy theories, 2,000 mules, just junk. This is a rare case that I think they have interesting matters of law, not fact, to decide an appeal. That's why I'm in the 17% that say, yeah, it's a legitimate case for appeal, but knowing what I read about the law, I think that he will lose, but I'm curious to see what the judges do. So if you're watching the show live Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, we're gonna do more of these interactive polls because we wanna get your opinions on them. That's why we put it in the chat, but we also wanna hear what you say in the YouTube community poll. So happy to have you participate in that as well.
All right, well, we're gonna take a break, and when we come back for the second hour of the show, we've got a lot more news to get to, including some progressive backstabbing involving Mondaire Jones and Jamal Bowman. This story is insane. You do not want to miss it. And later in the show, we'll also give you some updates on the Hunter Biden trial, which is taking place as we speak. We'll be right back.
Indisputable, exclusive, disputable, exclusive. We brought you this first. No other news agency has this video. No other news agency has this story.
Every week on Indisputable, we do original, exclusive, investigative reporting you'll find nowhere else.
Our reports have been viewed by millions. Hosted by Sean King, Ben Crump, Senator John Ossoff.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
We catching these cases on camera. Just imagine the things that we don't see.
Our groundbreaking investigations and exclusive interviews bring you the real voices no one else wants you to hear. We tell the stories.
Imagine a prison that is so racist, the corrections officers contact me. That is a life or death situation being created. A black woman who was driving for Uber was allegedly assaulted by a white male passenger. After we got involved, roughly 24 hours later, the police all of a sudden opened up an investigation. What was going through your mind when bullets were simply flying inside of your vehicle?
Honestly, I thought I was going to die.
Did these officers ever say that you fit the description of somebody they were looking for? Did they say that?
Never.
Okay, that means they lied.
And we want you to be part of our truth-telling movement. Send pictures and video of stories no one else is telling and a 1 or 2 paragraph summary of the story to Indisputable's exclusive tip line at indvideos@tyt.com.
If you have more information about what's happening at this particular facility, please let me know.
Together, we're challenging the system, and together, we're making a difference.
I have the entire background to this story, and it is going to make your blood boil.
Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, unveiling the truth, empowering the people. Weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific.
Today we're going to be speaking with Cenk Uygur, host of the Young Turks and also author of the new book, Justice is Coming.
Author of the brand new book that we have here, Justice is Coming.
How progressives are going to take over the country and America is going to love it.
His new book is out now, Justice is Coming.
Cenk Uygur.
He's got a book out.
I encourage every progressive and non-progressive to read it.
Very interesting, very thought-provoking.
2 main ideas. 1, that progressives are correct on these kind of policy issues. And 2, America is actually a very progressive country.
And it's a powerful read.
This will be banned in Florida. By the way, that would be kind of awesome. There's no question we're going to win in the long run. The country's that progressive?
You have given me hope, Cenk.
I do see you as a voice of reason on the left, and I hope people will check out your book.
It's for outsiders, and it's for progressives and populists that are looking to overthrow this system.
You need this book in your house.
They tell you that change is not possible, hope is not possible, justice is not possible. Do not believe their lies. Change always wins, and then we take off like a rocket.
tyt.com/justice.
I can't wait to have your sexual anarchy in my mouth.
Back on the Young Turks straight out of Compton because Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian here, but also Eazy-E who just joined.
What? Eazy-E watches the show?
From up above.
That's pretty cool.
Anyway, somebody with the handle Eazy-E just hit the join button below.
Eazy-E passed away?
Yeah, long time ago.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on right away.
All right, keep going.
Let's talk about Merrick Garland, shall we?
Attorney General, you've told us that it's a dangerous conspiracy theory to allege that the Department of Justice is communicating with these state and local prosecutions against Trump. You can clear it all up for us right now. Will the Department of Justice provide to the committee all documents, all correspondence between the department and Alvin Bragg's office and Fonnie Willis's office and Letitia James's office?
The offices you're referring to are independent offices of state.
I get that. I get that.
State.
The question is whether or not you will provide all of your documents and correspondence. That's the question. I don't need a history lesson.
Attorney General Merrick Garland was grilled for hours today during a House hearing, and he remained defiant as Republicans continued hitting him with hard questions and accusations during this House Judiciary Committee hearing. Now, he fought back against members, including Matt Gaetz, who tried to tie the Justice Department to state-level investigations that are independent from the DOJ, like the hush money trial in New York, for instance. He repeated right-wing allegations and accusations that the Department of Justice is being weaponized and politicized against Donald Trump. And even Jim Jordan got in on the actions. I don't know why I say even Jim Jordan. Of course, Jim Jordan got in on the action. We're gonna get to him in just a moment. But Cenk, you had communicated that you felt that Matt Gaetz actually made some decent points during this hearing. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, so on the one hand, you've got Republicans who are lunatics with this crazy theory on how Trump is going to get assassinated by Biden. That is totally cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So some of the Republicans, as usual, humiliated themselves, including Jim Jordan did a terrible job of asking questions. But Matt Gaetz actually did a shockingly decent job. And so on the clip that we just showed you, for example, everybody's talking about the insult, I don't need the history lesson, etc. That's not the relevant part. He's asking a legitimate question, which yes, is rare for a Republican, but it does happen from time to time. He's like, did you have communications with the state prosecutors, the local prosecutors that are going after Trump? So then would be the Biden Department of Justice communicating with those prosecutors. Now, they have a theory that the Biden team told them to go after Trump. I don't believe that theory, but Merrick Garland clearly evaded the question. It's a legitimate question, and Merrick Garland refused to answer it. He went around and around and around, and so he's obviously did have some, in my opinion, what I came away with that was he did have communication with them, and he doesn't want us to see it. And like he might have a legitimate executive privilege point in not showing them. They might be misleading in some ways. That kind of communication might be normal. I don't know, how all of that plays out because I don't know what's in the communications. But he certainly didn't want to share them.
I need to understand something, and I legitimately don't know the answer to this question. I don't even know if you know the answer to this question. But I understand that the state prosecutions are independent of the DOJ. But let's say in the case of Special Counsel Jack Smith's federal case against Trump over the fake elector scheme, would he be able to communicate with Fulton County?
So that's a great question and exactly what I thought. Look, if the communication says, hey, Jack Smith is asking Fulton County, I actually made a secret deal with Mark Meadows and I'm going to give him immunity. We should talk through how you're going to prosecute Mark Meadows because the immunity I'm giving him could be relevant to you guys. They should have that communication. Just because they have a communication doesn't mean they're guilty and they're coordinating. Some things they should coordinate on, right? Especially the example that I just gave you. And that did wind up becoming a mess. Apparently, if they are communicating, they're not communicating very well because Jack Smith does seem to have given immunity to Mark Meadows and Fulton County tried to prosecute him. So on the other hand, the communication could be Merrick Garland saying to Alvin Bragg, yeah, okay, it looks like Trump's running again, go after him. Now, is that likely? No way, I would be shocked if that was the communication. But that's what Gaetz is going for, and of course it's not gonna say that, but if it says something like, hey, this might be the right time to pursue state cases, they would then, that's the jargon that you would use if you didn't want to be brazen about it, but we're trying to communicate the same message. So it's so relevant what's in the communications.
You're right.
It could be perfectly innocent or it could be bad.
So couldn't the House Judiciary Committee subpoena that communication?
So that's where we get into above my pay grade. I think they can, but they're probably gonna then say executive privilege, and then how that plays out, I'm not sure. So, but the other parts of the Matt Gaetz questioning were also surprisingly legitimate, and Merrick Garland didn't have great answers throughout.
What a disaster. Okay, well, let's move on to the classified documents federal case, which of course is being overseen by Special Counsel Jack Smith. Now, Representative Jim Jordan, a Republican, wanted to know why Merrick Garland chose Jack Smith to be the prosecutor in that federal case. Let's take a look.
Mr. Garland, why Jack Smith? Why'd you pick him?
Well, I've said at the time I appointed Mr. Smith, I explained he was independent. He was a longtime career prosecutor with.
But there are probably other people who you would describe as independent, longtime career prosecutor. Why did you pick? This is probably the most high-profile special counsel investigation, maybe in American history. You're going to be investigating a former president, a candidate for president, and leading in all the polls, and you pick Jack Smith, most important selection maybe ever made from Attorney General when you come to a special counsel. I just want to know why you could have picked former AGs, deputy AGs, U.S. attorneys. You got all kinds of lawyers in this town, but you picked Jack Smith.
Yeah, all the people you just mentioned would be political appointees. I appointed somebody who is not a political appointee, somebody who was independent, nonpartisan, with a record of career experience as a prosecutor. That seemed to me the perfect resume.
Look, in order to understand this line of questioning, I need to understand why Jim Jordan has a specific problem with Jack Smith.
Yeah, because he's lying. So I watched the whole thing. He said, isn't it true that he also prosecuted Governor McDonnell in Virginia? Yeah, Governor McDonnell was a huge crook. The Supreme Court ruled in his favor because they love legalized bribery. And that case is maddening. It's a terrible case.
What was that
where the elites. So he took a whole bunch of money and gifts from lobbyists, and then the Supreme Court's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Money is speech. So they were just talking to McDonnell. I mean, the Supreme Court decisions on money in politics are ridiculous. But that's not the point here. Jim Jordan is trying to make it seem like Jack Smith only goes after Republicans. Merrick Garland is such a terrible witness for a couple of reasons. Just say why you really picked him. He picked him because Jack Smith has gone after Republicans and Democrats. He went after John Edwards. He prosecuted John Edwards, who was a presidential candidate on the Democratic side, who was a vice presidential nominee for the Democrats.
Why didn't you just say that?
Why don't you just say it, you idiot? Okay, but no, he has some sort of legal reason and political reason for hemming and hawing. Drives me crazy. And then Jim Jordan got into a line of question about, isn't it true that Jack Smith admitted evidence tampering? No, it's not remotely true.
We actually have that portion of the hearing, so let's take a look at the next video.
Do you regret the pick?
I'm sorry,
do you regret picking him?
No, I do not regret picking him.
Well, prosecutors aren't supposed to tamper with evidence, and it looks like that's what he did. He changed the sequence of the documents that he seized from Mar-a-Lago.
I'm sorry, that's a false characterization, but that is ongoing.
Here's what he said to the court, Mr. Attorney General. There are some boxes where the order of items within the box is not the same as in the associated scans. I mean, he said it, I didn't say it. He told the court that.
Now you're asking me to comment on a discovery dispute that's ongoing in a court. I don't know the facts of it, and I'm not going to comment on it.
No, this is from Jack Smith filing with the court. He admitted to the court that they tamper with the evidence. He mishandled the very documents he's charging President Trump with mishandling. And I'm just asking, do you regret picking this guy as the special counsel in the most important special counsel investigation probably in American history?
I'm sorry, I did not hear the words tamper in the statement that Mr. Smith filed. He did not use those words.
Okay, I'm gonna need every public figure to take media training classes to learn how to make direct, concise, and effective statements, because Merrick Garland bungled that as well. So what Jim Jordan was referring to, okay, like what Merrick Garland said in the beginning of his answer was wrong, because it's not that it's unfounded, it is true, it's just that it's irrelevant, it doesn't matter. Okay, so let me go to what he was referencing there. So special counsel Jack Smith's office the special counsel's office acknowledged themselves in a recent court filing that in at least some of the boxes obtained in the Mar-a-Lago search of classified documents, the documents are now in a different order within each box than when the Justice Department first took custody of the boxes. You want to know how much that matters? It doesn't matter at all. It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
There was no crime committed. That's not evidence tampering.
No, guys, let me be even clearer. So he tells you what the real order was when they took the evidence. And he's being overly careful in telling you, not overly careful, correctly careful in saying this is the new order that they're in. So by definition, he's not hiding the fact that they're in a different order or what their original order was. So how the hell is that evidence tampering? No, it's Jim Jordan is trying to mislead you. Jack Smith did not say he tampered with the evidence. This is the most benign, simple, logistical note ever in court history. And instead, Jim Jordan, the goddamn liar, comes in and goes, isn't it true that he witnessed tampered? Because he knows Fox News is just gonna take his clip, and every right-wing media host is gonna take his clip and pretend that there was evidence tampering, when Jim Jordan knows that there wasn't evidence tampering. This is why I say it's so rare when they actually ask questions that are not completely illegitimate and outrageous lies. So Matt Gaetz did in this case. Rand Paul asked good questions about where the virus broke out. Was it the lab or was it in nature? So I can remember like a handful of cases when Republicans asked legitimate questions, but Jim Jordan's were not. He's a liar trying to make sure that you are deceived about what's actually happening in these Trump cases because he knows Trump is guilty.
And then the final thing that I'll bring up is the insane allegation that there are efforts to assassinate Donald Trump, which that was addressed during this hearing. And so Garland responded to those claims saying, this is dangerous. It raises the threats of violence against prosecutors and career agents. The allegation is false. As the FBI has explained, the document that's being discussed is our standard use of force protocol, which is a limitation on the use of force and which is routinely part of the package for search warrants and was part of the package for the search of President Biden's home as well. Because remember, Biden also had some classified documents. He realized it, immediately alerted the authorities about it, and then they searched his home as well. And so like, guys, like when have police ever done a raid where the agreement ahead of time was we will not use lethal force if someone during the raid poses an imminent threat to our lives?
Yeah.
And Trump wasn't at Mar-a-Lago when the raid happened. It wasn't even a raid, it was an FBI search.
It's so dumb, I refuse to debate the issue. So look, guys, you see, sometimes we get charged for taking a right-wing turn, or on Twitter all the time, oh, you're supporting Trump. Why? Why do we get those charges? Because we're a very, very rare show in media that's fair, that says, oh, Matt Gaetz made an interesting point there, and that should actually be answered, etc. And we point out what's also wrong with Biden and the Democrats. And everybody's used to the two sides, and you have to be on one side and lie for your side, right? And we don't do that. But the reason why I could never be a Republican in these current days is because a giant portion of the party very regularly believes in literal lunatic conspiracy theories. Like just off your rockers, insane. Every warrant says that the cops or the FBI can use force. Every warrant, right? Yeah. And now all of a sudden, all of you lunatics have believed, I'm sorry, look, to be fair to the voters, some of them will believe anything and they can't, and I mean, how do you believe that nonsense? But a lot of them just watch right-wing media. And almost every right-wing media host is a giant, giant liar. So they take things like this, like, oh, they were gonna murder Trump. Oh, this is gonna happen any second now. I'm not gonna be in league with a bunch of crooks, goddamn liars. And Merrick Garland is right in that case. It's super dangerous. The last two Republicans I talked to on the street, they're like, do you think that they're gonna kill Trump?
No, it sows paranoia. It's incredibly toxic, irresponsible, and dangerous, okay? And there's no evidence for it, right? Like it would be one thing if there was any real substantive evidence pointing to efforts to assassinate Trump. There haven't been, okay? And the idea that a warrant indicating that the cops can use force during a raid, that is not evidence. That happens in every search, every raid of someone's home once they've been suspected of wrongdoing.
Hey, right-wingers, are you now radical left-wingers? Do you think that the cops should never be able to use force in a raid?
Only when it's convenient.
Yeah, only when it's the rich and powerful on your side. Only when you're trying to protect the elites like Donald Trump. When they're raiding his goddamn castle at Mar-a-Lago, you're like, oh, no, you should crack the skulls of every black defendant. And by the way, every poor white defendant, you should crack all their skulls and use as much violence as you can. But against our beloved elite, Donald Trump, don't touch his pretty hair in his pretty castle, his goddamn Rapunzel.
He wasn't at Mar-a-Lago, guys.
Okay.
He wasn't at Mar-a-Lago, and that was very much on purpose, okay? The FBI was coordinating with people at Mar-a-Lago. It was all coordinated to ensure that Trump wasn't there as the search of Mar-a-Lago was happening for the classified documents that Trump should not have taken home with him after he left the White House, for the classified documents that he refused to return to the feds after they asked him repeatedly to please, pretty please, we don't want to have to raid you, please, we don't want to have to come after you. Can you please just return the documents? He wouldn't do it. Donald Trump, I'm sorry to say it, he is his own worst enemy. And for the avid Trump supporters out there who think he's the second coming of God, please acknowledge that he is his own worst enemy. Because unlike Biden, who returned the classified documents the second he realized he was in possession of them, Donald Trump did not want to return the classified documents. This is a criminal case of his own making. And it didn't need to be this way.
And if you look, are all Republicans or even a majority of Republicans like weirdo, violent zealots that are gonna go kill people? Of course not. But has there been a significant enough minority of right-wingers who have tried to kill Donald Trump's opponents with pipe bombs and other weapons, etc.? Yes. So when Trump's and January 6th happened, when he said, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if you did something at Congress," and they go and do something violent at Congress. So when he says, when his allies and he himself start implying that Donald Trump's life might be in danger, that triggers the small minority of right-wingers who are like, "That's it, I'm grabbing my gun. I got to go protect Donald Trump. I got to go protect him by killing the prosecutors, etc., who are trying to assassinate him, or FBI officials who are trying to assassinate him." They're purposely triggering the maniacs, and it's super dangerous.
All right, updates to the Hunter Biden trial and more when we return. Don't miss it.
All right, let's go to YouTube Super Chat. Gabby Mathis, thank you for the wonderful generosity. She wrote, "I've stood up for progressives all my life. Now I'm 69. When called neurotic and a commie by a member in the chat, I fought even harder. Our rainbow flag is flying high, even though I am not gay, but stand with them. Hashtag Team Joy till I die. I will always fight for progressives." Love it. And I love the part where you fight for someone that isn't from your tribe, okay? We fight for someone that isn't us, and that's what makes us decent human beings. We have empathy. So thank you, Gabby. Okay, Brickhouse Mama 98 said, "Cenk, I wanted to share that I look at the mistakes lessons as lessons learned. My motto is life is not an injustice. Life is an in-service. Every experience is for our growth, even the bad ones. Hashtag Team Joy." Guys, we're doing Team Joy today in the bonus episode for the members, where we talk about how to make each other happier. There's all these wonderful comments you got to see that we're gonna have in the bonus episode today. So hit the join button or tyt.com/team.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. I thought that was a powerful message, and I myself have found that I've experienced the most personal growth during the hardest times in my life. So when things are easy peasy, I mean, I'm happy, but you don't really change or grow as a person when things are good and you're complacent.
100%. All right, Van Serova says, guys, you both look great today. Anna, Eurovision. But Cenk, let's get that next button undone and get a little chest hair.
Oh my God, ass pack.
No. That's a reference to the last old school, okay?
Oh.
So, or 2 old schools ago. So check that out if you're a member. Members get everything, including Old School Live, which is tonight, by the way. That's at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Vincent Morales, there it is. So check that out if you're a member. Vincent Morales, TYT calendar. Cenk, you can be January. Don't make me do it. All right, maybe I'll save it for the bonus episode. R. Stone says, can we start calling corporate Democrats what they really are? Generic brand Republicans, cheaper, watered down, barely effective, and no one prefers them. Unfortunately, that's true, and they still haven't gotten that memo. Titan says, it turns out the guy driving with a suspended driver's license was innocent. Also, my shadow banned. My super chats have been ignored for over a month now. LOL, what did I do? Titan, of course you're not shadow banned. We appreciate you. You're right, actually. We were trying to get to that today.
Story.
We have it today. We'll be back.
Shit.
Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. So I wish I had time for all the comments. Your comments are amazing. We appreciate you. But I do have to say, Princess Luna, thank you for voting for me in New Jersey today. I forgot that the primary was still happening. Okay, but I appreciate you. Of course, I dropped out a while ago, but God bless you for voting for me. It doesn't matter in either direction, as you asked. And finally, Carlos Aguillo writes in, just purchased the domain name for ASPAC. What are we doing with it? Yeah. So now we got the domain too. So Carlos, we'll come back to you. We'll see what we're gonna do with it. You guys are an amazing audience. All right, Anna.
All right, we're gonna do a rapid fire update on the Hunter Biden trial. So, Hunter Biden, who's currently standing trial for allegedly purchasing a gun while addicted to drugs, which is in fact a crime, has found himself an unlikely defender in Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham told the Huffington Post, quote, I think any average American who's done their taxes like Hunter Biden would have probably faced prosecution. Let me just clarify what he means there. Hunter Biden hadn't paid his taxes, but he made good on that and ended up paying his taxes late. So that was what Lindsey Graham was referencing there, but let me continue with his statement. However, I don't think the average American would have been charged with the gun thing. I don't see any good coming from that. And that could be because a lot of Americans do drugs and a lot of Americans have guns. And it's the point that you had made before, Cenk. It's the point that we've made on this show. In fact, why don't we go to our first video? The third count alleges that he possessed a firearm while using a narcotic. And I mean, that must be a very, very serious offense in a country where we're just swimming with guns. All of these other gun owners, definitely not using any illegal narcotics, definitely not.
By the way, in case you're wondering, marijuana is illegal at the federal level.
Yep.
And hence, literally millions of people have done this crime. Right-wing voters. I don't know that you care about principles at all anymore. I don't know, it's up to you guys. But guys, like making a mistake on a gun form. He had the gun for 11 days and then threw it away. Did not commit any crimes with that gun. And none of you have been smoked pot at all while having a gun. None of you have. None of you have ever made a mistake on one of those forms. Come on, you know that if he did this to you, you would go ballistic. You'd say it was the tyranny of government taking your rights away, trying to put you in prison for a tiny mistake on a gun form with no other underlying crime with that gun. Get out of here, you don't believe that.
So once again, let's take a look at this graphic. Hashtag Anna was right, and also hashtag Cenk was right.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we're tongue in cheek about being obnoxious about that. But look, Lindsey Graham, I think, woke up and realized that half of his constituents had done that crime.
Yeah.
And then he's like, that's unfortunate.
Look, and I want to also just give a caveat, right? Because I think marijuana is very different from crack, which is what Hunter Biden was using and addicted to, allegedly.
But it would be just as illegal.
It would be just as illegal if what you're using is marijuana and not crack.
Yep.
So that's why we made the statements that we made previously. It's not to provide cover for Hunter Biden. I actually think it is serious if you're addicted to drugs like crack to have lethal weapons in your possession. But anyway,
yeah,
go ahead.
And I actually don't agree with Lindsey Graham on the first part either. You paid your taxes late, but you paid them. It's the most minor crime I've ever seen. His donors have evaded taxes for decades. I think those are massive crimes, but we never prosecute those. So somebody files their taxes late, whoop-de-frickin' do. None of you have filed your taxes late? So no, look, the ironic thing here is that they say the case against Trump is political. I mean, we've had that debate many times on this show. But the case against Hunter Biden is indisputably political. Like if you had him on an actual scam on the Ukrainian gas or the art and it's actually bribes being funneled to him, great, prosecute him. I hate corruption. I hate how the family members get away with everything, both Republicans and Democrats. But on late taxes and filling out a gun form wrong, those aren't real charges, and no one else would be prosecuted under that. They're doing it just to see, oh, we're so fair. Okay, Republicans, you guys have cried so much about this guy, so we'll try to prosecute him.
Now let's go to the defense attorney who's making an argument that no, actually Hunter Biden was very briefly clean at the time that he purchased the gun. So defense lawyer Abe Lowell focused his opening statement on the language of the form, which asks whether the prospective buyer is an unlawful user of drugs. Quote, it does not say, have you ever been? It does not say, have you ever used, Lowell said. He did not buy that gun knowing that he fit into a category of people who could not do so. So basically, he was ignorant of the reality of these laws. And then
no, it's even worse than that.
Yeah, no, I know. Let me give you the statement because it's absurd. I think it's absurd. So the argument is that the lawyer pointed to Biden's 2-week stint in rehab that August, suggesting that Biden had just gotten clean and bought the gun during that clean period. Guys, come on. He wrote about his crack addiction during this time in his book, which is what the prosecutors are using against him.
Under Abe Lowell's defense argument, you could say, well, he wasn't using crack at the very moment he signed the form, so it wasn't it was earlier and after, but technically, no, that's
crazy.
So if I'm on the jury, I'm not buying that at all. Yeah, he was on drugs when he bought the gun. I'd say guilty and he should get half a day of community service.
Okay, so hold on to your butts for this because here's the response from the prosecutors. Prosecutor Derek Hines told jurors that Hunter Biden described his behavior at the time as smoking every 15 minutes, 7 days a week. This is all in his book, okay? Yeah. He boasted in his book of having a superpower for finding crack anywhere, the prosecutor said.
That's got to be the worst superpower.
Not good.
You're not gonna make the League of Justice with that superpower. Hey guys, don't worry, I can find crack anywhere at any time. Oh, Batman, what can we do with him? It's not gonna work out. Anyways, look, did he actually fill out the form wrong? Of course he did. Of course he did. Of course he was lying. But is this a thing you're gonna prosecute for? Again, you would have to prosecute about half the country if you prosecute Hunter Biden for this.
Now, the final thing I'll bring up from the court proceedings today is the most explosive moment that actually involved Melissa Cohen Biden, who is was Beau's ex-wife, right? Or Beau's wife. I don't know, forget what I just said because I don't know for sure and I don't want to misinform. But anyway, so Melissa Cohen Biden called a former Trump aide by the name of Garrett Ziegler a Nazi piece of, word we can't say on the show. So Ziegler was part of the effort to make the files on Hunter Biden's notorious laptop public. Asked about the encounter, Cohen Biden said Ziegler has called her the most horrific Jewish slurs, adding that he should be asked why he's never called Jared Kushner any of those Jewish slurs, referring to Trump's son-in-law, of course. So Ziegler told NBC News, "It's sad. I've been sitting here the whole time and haven't approached anyone. For the record, I'm not a Nazi. I'm a believer in the US Constitution. I haven't said one thing to them." I don't know, this is a he said, she said type situation, so I don't know what the reality is, and I haven't seen evidence of him saying horrific anti-Semitic things to her. But that was the most explosive moment in the trial today.
If he did, that's terrible. But really now we're like down a weirdo rabbit hole. Hunter Biden's not even relevant, let alone his wife, let alone the person who insulted his wife.
Yeah, it's just.
Who cares? Look, guys, bottom line is, if they had evidence connecting Hunter Biden's shenanigans with the Ukrainian gas company, etc., to Joe Biden, that would have been a super relevant political story of corruption. But they have no such evidence. They've never presented it. They don't have it. Every time they said they had it, they were humiliated when their witnesses would say the exact opposite. So they got mad and they got the Justice Department to prosecute Hunter Biden for crap, perhaps trash things. Right. So it's like the equivalent of jaywalking. Yeah, his defense attorney is being ridiculous because he's like, he wasn't walking, he was hopping and skipping. Okay, but at the end of the day, it's jaywalking and it has nothing to do with Joe Biden.
Yeah, and by the way, Melissa, the woman who just made the accusation against Ziegler, is Hunter Biden's current wife. And the gun charge is important in that Beau Biden's wife, who was a widow, ended up forging a relationship with Hunter Biden. She found out that he was in possession of that gun and then threw it away in the trash in a public place, which is, don't do that. That's a bad thing. Don't do that at all. Okay, so.
Yeah, okay, these are minor infractions that are totally irrelevant to the political process.
Don't dispose of the gun in a public trash can.
She made a mistake. Okay,
yeah.
What do we? Then we're going to prosecute her and her dog, and because the Republicans don't want any political prosecutions unless it's of the other side.
Only if the dog was a bad boy. All right, we gotta take a break. I'm trolling you, Cenk.
I know.
Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, a correction on a story we did last week, and then we'll talk about Caitlin Clark.
I knew that ASPAC would jump the shark, and it already has. Joint TYT members writes in, if we're doing a TYT calendar, can we get Johnny Pie in an ASPAC label Speedo?
Oh my God.
And the answer is no.
I'm pretty sure that breaks like some labor laws.
Yeah, poor brother already dyed his hair. He's done it a couple of times. I love him for it. Dragon Squad, you're the best for all the wonderful gifts and for supporting John so much. And I love the connection you guys have with John and the Dragon Squad. But no, we're not making anyone wear a Speedo. Okay, that's not gonna happen. Anyways, so let's go to YouTube members. Actually, before that, super chat real quick. Pakistani American Single 35 said, Cenk and Anna, always love your reporting on daily events, especially on the Palestine war. USA sanctioning ICC, let them try. Maybe ICC should consider going after these inhumane US politicians as indirect involvement of genocide. I don't think that that's that bad an idea. I think if you give someone $20 billion to do something, that's pretty close to doing it with them. That's like saying, hey, you're doing a bank robbery, here, let me buy you a car and then we'll split the proceeds. Well, you're definitely involved in that crime. So I think there's a good case for the ICC to arrest Biden and Blinken as well. The chance of that happening is 0%. Dawn Whitehead backing up that same gentleman in reply to Pakistani American Single 35. I agree the ICC should charge the US government for its role in the Gaza genocide. We all agree. Lady Fukanti says, oh, Cenk, please, 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 on a future bonus show, can you show the Pastor Manning interview? That was priceless, LOL.
Long-legged Mac Daddy.
That is, you know what? That's a great idea. Okay, let's try. Hey, Alyssa, can you make a note about that? Showing the Pastor Manning interview in a bonus episode.
You know, I call Charlie a long-legged Mac Daddy.
Oh, that's really funny.
Because he does have long legs.
Yeah. So guys,
Long-legged Mac Daddy.
If you didn't see our interview with the pastor who said that Starbucks was putting semen in the coffee to make it more delicious.
Oh my God, I remember that.
You're gonna want to become a member just to see that old interview at some point. Okay, anyway, Deborah Gwynn says, hi, I've been a member since 2015, but just subscribed to YouTube. I'm an everyday TYTer. Can't imagine getting through the day without knowing what's going on. Knowledge is power. Deborah, you're awesome. Thank you for doing it on both platforms. If you're a YouTube member, by the way, you can do it on tyt.com/team. We can also get donations there, so thank you. Ronan DLB says, you guys are praising the transfer of migrants to blue cities. When that happens, you get disasters like this. Ronan, the reason I'm reading your comment is because I want to clarify. I've said this a million times. We said it was a good political move, and it did turn into a good political move. We were right about that. The Republicans gained a lot from that move. We didn't say it was a good policy move. That's different, okay? But you should relieve the border towns. That's also a different issue. So I wanted to make sure that you knew our real position. HC says, to be fair to Netanyahu, war criminals address Congress every year. We just call it the State of the Union. Damn, mic drop, and an excellent point. All right, we'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, and Sile34, thank you for gifting 5 Young Turks memberships on YouTube. And then person didn't give their handle, but whoever contributed on tyt.com/team, we appreciate your generosity. You're the best. Anna.
All right, we need to make a correction on a story that we covered last week.
So maybe I don't understand something. This is a driving while license suspended?
That is correct, Your Honor.
And he was just driving, and he didn't have a license.
Corey Harris, who went viral last week due to a video that showed him driving while attending a court hearing for driving with a suspended license, was actually the victim of a clerical error and also misreported news. And so we have to correct our own coverage of this because there was some context that was totally missing from the reporting. Now, he actually did not have a suspended license, and the reason why it appeared he had a suspended license was due to a clerical error, and the story was kind of fake news. So for those who might have actually missed the original story, the footage showed Corey Harris calling into a court hearing before Judge J. Cedric Simpson of the Washtenaw County District Court. So here's the video that went viral, and then I'll explain what really happened behind the scenes.
Assistant Public Defender Natalie Tate for Mr. Harris, who should be present via Zoom.
Mr. Harris, are you driving?
Actually, I'm pulling into my doctor's office, actually. So just give me 1 second. I'm parking right now.
Wait. You stationary?
I'm pulling in right now at this second. Yes, I am.
All right. What are we doing?
Your Honor, we are respectfully requesting an adjournment in this matter, up possibly 2 to 4 weeks if the court would allow.
Okay. So maybe I don't understand something. This is a driving while license suspended?
That is correct, Your Honor.
So if you just take the viral video at face value and you don't do any other digging, it looks funny, right? Hilarious that a guy is dealing with a court issue because of the fact that he drives with a suspended license, and he's calling into the court proceedings as he's driving, presumably with a suspended license. But it turns out he didn't have a suspended license. So as Reason points out, It turns out that all these stories were based on a falsehood. Harris's license had been reinstated years prior and was only registering as suspended due to a clerical error. USA Today went even deeper in their correction, saying that Harris's license had been suspended during a now settled child support case before it was ordered reinstated. Court records show the reason Simpson and no one in the courtroom knew about the reinstatement is because the Michigan Secretary of State's office never received a clearance from the Saginaw County friend of the court, which was supposed to make that change and make it clear in the records that his license is no longer suspended. And so without that clearance, the lift on Harris's license never officially went into effect. So the story and our correction actually ends up getting a little bit worse when you find out why he was driving at that time. So Corey Harris spoke to a local TV station saying, "What was I thinking? I was thinking about getting my wife medical help. That's what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking about the fact that I got a suspended license. I don't care about all that." Now, he didn't have a suspended license. And remember, you heard him in that video say that he went to the hospital. It was because of a worsening medical condition that his wife was experiencing. Yeah. And finally, he says it's very embarrassing. Harris says about learning that the video showing him driving during a recent court hearing went viral. With the type of ties that I have with the church and the community, it's very embarrassing. So I want to apologize to Corey for the error in the reporting.
Yeah, I don't. So let me be clear about two different things here. So one is, were we outrageously wrong in reporting that? No, his defense attorney said that he was driving with a suspended license on tape. The judge said it, and he had about 2 minutes to respond, and he mainly went, and even in that quote, he says he was driving. He didn't even know that it wasn't suspended. Okay, so we don't need to apologize for anything. Having said that, it's important for you guys to know what's real. We do the corrections so you're not misled into thinking that that guy was doing something wrong. I'm not even sure he knew that he wasn't doing something wrong, but it doesn't matter, he wasn't. The license was not suspended. It's important that you know the reality. That's why we're doing the correction.
All right, with that in mind, why don't we move on to the Caitlin Clark story, which we're about to do right now. Let's do it.
Here's the reality. Tommy's right. It's not just race, though. It's also sexuality. Caitlin Clark is a white heterosexual woman in a black lesbian league, and they resent and are jealous of all of the attention and the shoe deal that she got.
Caitlin Clark, the incredibly talented WNBA rookie, has brought a lot of positive attention to women's basketball, and unfortunately has also sparked a ton of debate in the media about how players of different races are treated. Now, it's a nuanced discussion, but right-wing sports commentator Clay Travis's expert commentary was,
commentary.
Yeah, was to just call the WNBA a black lesbian league.
Yeah, so listen, are there some people in the WNBA who are jealous of Caitlin Clark? I don't know them personally, but I would be surprised if there weren't, because in almost all situations like this, massive jealousy erupts. When a giant star comes and then, by the way, lifts all boats, but gets all of the attention, what happens in every league, even if it's a male league, female league, sports, non-sports, doesn't matter. Everybody else goes, whoa, we've been here all along doing all these great things. That person and that person is a way better player than her. She's just a rookie. People catch feelings.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't buy that. Like, at first I did agree with that statement, Cenk, and I think in some cases that's true, but that doesn't happen in the NBA.
Of course it does.
Really? You have a bunch of you have a bunch of players in the NBA going after LeBron and like diminishing his talent?
Totally.
Oh, okay, then I take it back.
They snipe at each other 24/7, right? And every commentator and the rookies always get it the most. Oh, what have they done? They haven't done anything yet. You know about Bill Russell? You know how many championships he won, right? So this is super normal, guys. So people get jealous, no problem. Are they wrong, by the way? They're totally wrong. She's getting you way better, more attention to all of you, and getting higher salaries, etc. But is it racial? Wait,
yeah,
hold on.
There's a racial component. Let me present the story.
Okay, all right. Then I'll weigh in on whether I think it's racial.
Okay. You're gonna think it is because I'm gonna have a lot of receipts. So now, before we get into that nuanced discussion, during a debate over whether race has played a factor in Clark's meteoric rise, commentator Pat McAfee chose, let's just be generous and say, a curious way to make that case that the notion is wrong. So he outlined Clark's dominant television ratings, ticket sales, and jersey sales, and said this: what we're trying to say is what the WNBA currently has is what we like to describe as a cash cow. There is a superstar, but I would like the media people that continue to say this rookie class, nah, just call it for what it is. There is one white bitch for the Indiana team who is a superstar. So he later apologized for that, and I watched that video. It was awful to, in my opinion, bring her race into it and do it in like this celebratory way. It almost felt as though it was like, oh, we finally have a WNBA player who happens to be white and she's super talented. You know, she's just dunking on everyone. Like it had that feel to it. And so it adds to this like incredibly toxic environment surrounding Caitlin Clark, where in my opinion, from what I've seen, people have kind of brushed aside how incredibly talented she is and kind of diminished it by talking about how, oh no, it's because of white privilege, or in Sunny Hostin's case, white privilege and pretty girl privilege.
Yeah, so just to be clear on McAfee, he is very much in favor of Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
And he just called her a white bitch. I don't know why, to get attention. I don't know. Like, I guess he's saying like, oh, she's a badass. So I don't want you to think McAfee's against her. He's for her, but like weirdly celebrating her race. I don't know what that's about. But look, Anna, in my case, in terms of does race play a role here, I think that the answer is partly, but go ahead, give more of the evidence and I'll explain what I mean by partly in a second.
Okay, so other WNBA players have been pretty vicious toward her. So one of the more recent examples had to do with her getting shoulder checked by Kennedy Carter, who's with the Chicago team. So we can't play the video, but we'll show you the screenshots of her literally shoulder checking her. And then you see her fall to the ground. Now, after the game, the league actually upgraded the hit from a common foul to a flagrant foul. So this actually, since we're talking about another white player, this actually bolsters the point that you're making.
No, she's black, the one who shoulder checked her.
Wait, can we put the pictures up again?
No, I know, she's light skinned.
Oh,
she's
okay,
black.
Sorry. Interesting, okay. And then the incident isn't the first time that players have gotten physical with Clark since she started with the WNBA. It's just the latest example. So I didn't know this, but the WNBA is comprised of 70% black players. And I think, look, I can understand the frustration if no one was paying attention to the WNBA until all of a sudden they are, and the person that they're paying attention to happens to be a white player. And so the automatic assumption is, oh, it has to do with the fact that she's white. But she's incredibly talented. I mean, she's breaking records. You get what I'm saying? Like, it would be entirely different if she's just a mediocre player and she just happens to be white and attractive and everyone's like giving her accolades for that. But she's breaking records. And I just feel like there's something really gross about diminishing her talent to just focus on things that she can't control, like her skin color.
Yeah, so here's what I mean. Look, sometimes race plays a role in popularity. So for example, Jason Sehorn was one of the last white cornerbacks in the NFL, cornerback playing defense. And his jersey would always be the top seller. Even though there were more talented players, better cornerbacks, et cetera, it was a lot of white kids who related to Jason Sehorn and they'd buy his jersey, okay? That's why it was a top seller. And he was a great cornerback, don't get me wrong. Tiger Woods, his race played some role in his popularity because he was a rare black golfer and that drew a lot of attention. Now that doesn't mean that Tiger Woods was only drawing attention because he was black. No, he was the best golfer, right? And Caitlin Clark is the best in the rookie class, was the best in college. Her stats are awesome. So she's drawing attention for both. It's a little bit like, oh, she happens to be white. The league is 70% black. On the other hand, Did LeBron James, who was similarly situated, he came out from high school, but had gigantic numbers like Caitlin Clark does out of college. Did he get hyped up just as much? Yeah, he did. Now, he happened to deliver on that hype, but he was black, the league was mostly black, and he got massive hype anyway. So it's not just about race at all. Sometimes it's a little bit of a factor. Saying it's never a factor isn't right, but people are too obsessed with it. So when you look back at the first clip that we showed you guys, that guy's a jackass. Oh, it's a lesbian black league, and that's why. What does the lesbian or straight have anything to do with this?
Yeah, I hate everybody, okay? Like, the country has become far too divided based on identitarianism. It's toxic, it's in every single facet of life, and I find it super dehumanizing and disgusting. Las Vegas Aces star Asia Wilson said this. You know, she was asked whether she feels that race has something to do with Caitlin Clark's meteoric rise, and she says, I think it's a huge thing. I think a lot of people may say it's not about black and white, but to me it is. It really is, because you can be top notch at what you are as a black woman, but yet maybe that's something that people don't want to see. And then she continues to say, they don't see it as marketable, so it doesn't matter how hard I work. It doesn't matter what we all do as black women. We're still going to be swept underneath the rug. That's why it boils my blood when people say it's not about race, because it is. To which I say Serena Williams was the top tennis player for a long time, highly marketable, became incredibly famous, incredibly rich off of her talent as a black woman in tennis. Yes, there were racists in the country that attacked her for racist reasons, but put that aside. The idea that black women are not marketable, if they're incredibly talented and like at the top of their craft or the athletics that they're involved in, it's just, I think it's a ridiculous statement to make.
So look, I get that Caitlin Clark captured the imagination of the country, and I don't know what percentage her being white had to do with it. On the other hand, Anna's indisputably right. Before Serena Williams, it was Venus Williams. And why was that different? You could argue, hey, it's very successful black women in a generally white sport, same thing as Tiger Woods, and that's maybe made them more marketable rather than less marketable. On the other hand, guys, it's not like we had trouble marketing as a country and Nike as a company, et cetera, among other companies, had trouble marketing Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant. It's not like people were like, oh my God, we can't market black people in this country. No, we figured it out, we can. Okay, so there was a reasonable way to have this conversation where you acknowledge that race might have been a small part of why she captured the imagination, but it was mainly because she was a terrific player and a rare player of that caliber coming into the league, something to celebrate, right? But we didn't have that reasonable conversation. Instead, we had people yelling at each other saying, oh, it's only because she's white. Oh yeah, it's because you guys are black and lesbian that you hate her. None of that is true, none of that is productive. But what I do love, and the ironic silver lining here, is that it's produced so much hype and drama that now more people are gonna watch the WNBA, which is a great thing. So they accidentally hyped it up in a way that's gonna bring good results. All right, bonus episode is Operation Joy, where we talk about how to make each other happy. It's an amazing thing, people love it, you get addicted to it. TYT.com/team or hit the join button below. We'll see you there.